Quiet.
Alright, so you'll press the button now, Susan?
Yep.
Oh, all right, but this last thing. Alright, good evening, this is the October CB3 Land Use Committee. We're gonna actually have two agenda items this evening, which we will get to in time. Anyone who's here in the office who wishes to speak, please fill out a speaker form. Those of you online will eventually ask you if you wish to speak, if you'd like to speak. Usually following the presentation and questions by the board member, we'll hear from the public. And then if a vote is necessary, we'll take a vote. Our secretary, ad hoc secretary is missing at the moment, so I guess I'll just start off with approving the meeting minutes and taking a roll. Damaris. I'm present. Ariadna. Absent. Alistair. Here. Herman.
Yeah.
Michelle.
President.
Stay.
We're
We're gonna volunteer to cover for
I'm
Ariadna.
good.
Just starting for you there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Catch your breath.
Oh, Molly. Campbell. Here. Oh, wow. Rod.
Here.
Eileen. Here. Sandra. Present. Steve.
Here.
Megan.
Susie. Yeah, it was the weekend.
I have one.
I sent it to Michelle to put on the screen.
Okay.
You want me to print out a copy also?
I can, just try to resume it.
Oh, here, let me.
I apologize for my.
I'll print it out in a second.
The opportunity to stop into one of the outerwear stores on Orchard Street to ask them their opinion of the proposal ahead.
All right, so we are done with the bull, right? All right, so we're gonna first hear from a presentation, couple of speakers
Sign down, yeah. Okay,
who will be presenting. We'll hear from Tim and later from EDC and Delancey Associates. And we will actually give the floor first to Tim. You ready? Are you ready, Joe?
I am. Yes, I am ready.
Yeah, just. We'll have to give you a mic. Yeah, please introduce yourself.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, please, yeah, we're ready to go.
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself and fire away.
Oh, hey, good evening. My name is Tim Laughlin. I'm the president of the Lower East Side Partnership. Thank you for having me. And now I am presenting. I think that I am presenting the summary of a task force meeting that we had recently. As many of you may know, the Essex Crossing Task Force is a collaboration of members of the community, stakeholders who've been members of the community board who've worked on the project for a really long time. We had a discussion with our colleagues at EDC and the development team about the potential for different use at the market line. We'll let them kind of describe the outcomes of that meeting and kind of where they think things should be going. We've also, at Susan's request, put together the notes and conversations from that meeting in resolution form that follows a resolution that the community board passed in October of 2024.
And those are actually posted on the website. So if anybody's online, wants to look, it's on the calendar right now.
Thank you. And I think it might be helpful, and I'll defer to all of you, perhaps to hear from the city and their teams. And then discuss and answer any questions from a variety of different perspectives. I know that some of us have been here for a long time. Some of us have different hats than when we started, but it's been a long time coming. And so we're kind of at the tail end of a project in Essex Crossing as opposed to at the beginning, and things have certainly changed. And so we'll go from there. Does that make sense from a summary perspective?
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, DJ, if you'd like to take the floor and introduce yourself and let's hear what EDC has to say.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. Always nice to be back, to see some familiar faces and some new faces. I'm Gigi Lee. I am currently a vice president in EDC's government and community relations team. I do cover Lower Manhattan, and I think as many of you know, have been with some of the folks in this room since the very beginning of Essex Crossing. So am very aware of everything that we fought for, what the commitments are, and have, over the past sort of 15 years journeyed from being on the community board to then, advocating for Essex from the former council member's office and now at EDC. So with that, joining us today, also from EDC is John from our real estate team to answer any real estate related questions. And then also Rohan, and the screen is really far away. I can't tell if Andrew's also on.
I am. I'm here.
Great. So you have 4 of us to help answer any questions. And I believe we're prepared to answer some of the questions that the task force members had asked for additional clarification on. But I think what might be helpful to kind of form a baseline of kind of how we got here today, with the closure of the market line, I'm going to let Rohan sort of walk you through a little bit of the timeline, the efforts to find a new tenant, what some of those challenges were, and then we can take it from there as it relates to community agreements and path forward.
Hello, everybody. Can everyone hear me? Am I coming through loud and clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thanks for having me. So we are, Gigi mentioned the timeline. I won't go back too far, but I want to kind of lay down some of the background because it may lend itself to some of the questions that get asked. We opened the market line in 2019, struggled through the pandemic, but kept it.
Sorry to interrupt, but can you just introduce yourself and how you're involved in this project?
Of course. My name's Rohan Mehra. I'm a principal at the Prussic Group. We are the retail partner on Essex Crossing. I've been involved in the project since the RFP process. So not as long as some of you or as long as Gigi, but as long as anybody on the development side. That included coming up with the initial plan for the project from a retail perspective and then executing on all of that and continue to work on it in that capacity today, along with the rest of the people in my company. So we opened the market line, which had been the original vision of the RFP in late 2019. Obviously the pandemic hit in early 2020. We abated rents, kept everybody open, did everything we could to kind of try to weather the storm of the pandemic. But at the end of the day, after about 4.5 years of operation, we closed. And that was basically due to the fact that none of the vendors were doing well enough to really survive. And that was without any of them paying rent. So we operated at significant losses, put a lot of money into marketing, anything you can imagine. It was very important to us for this to sort of work out. We had proposed it because we thought it was the right idea. But a host of sort of environmental factors, pandemic leading to no office space and things like that really just made it sort of insolvent. And most of the vendors just, were either going to leave voluntarily anyways, but you have to make kind of a group decision when it comes to a market like this. So we closed in April 1st, 2024. Since that time, in line with our agreements outlined with the city, we began a process of basically seeing what we could do with the space. This was pretty exhaustive. We enlisted all of our broker relationships, with JLL taking the lead. We had reached out to over 70 tenants. Some initial feedback in our conversations with the city, through EDC and with the community and with Tim in the Essex market were, please don't do a grocery store here. Obviously you have a few down there. We put the Trader Joe's in, but mainly as competition for the Essex market, and we were sensitive to that. So we shut that sort of avenue down, which honestly was understandably a large chunk of tenants interested in the space just by virtue of the market being upstairs and the density of population down there. The tenants that we reached out to spanned everything you could imagine. Entertainment, hospitality, F&B, fitness, food halls, education, museum, soft goods apparel, variety stores, books, electronics, sporting goods, home furnishings. but in spite of, you know, having conversations with that many tenants, we only had proposals from 3 users, and all 3 of them were in the soft goods and apparel arena. And you may wonder why that is. It's really by virtue of, you know, for those of you who are familiar with the space, one, it's in the basement, obviously. 2, it has a lot of columns, you know, by virtue of there being the market upstairs and then a high-rise tower and a movie theater above. There's just a lot of you know, what we refer to as spaghetti running through the ceiling and things like that. So it just was not, it's not sort of wide open space that a lot of those users would need. And a lot of people just didn't like the basement feel of the space. Obviously, no windows. We have a few cut throughs to the street in a couple corners, but it just wasn't adequate. So where we landed there was, you know, proposals from 3 different apparel retailers. And ultimately came to agreement on terms with Burlington to take the entirety of the space. I'll stop there. I mean, I'm not sure if there's specific questions or anything else you kind of wanted to understand with the process. But that's, you know, that's sort of the high level approach we took. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any questions related to any of that.
Sure. I mean, does EDC have more to present, or is this?
I mean, we're here to answer any questions.
Very good. All right, so is there anybody on the, I don't have any questions, anybody on the committee have any questions? They would like to ask about the process? Yes, Michelle.
Thanks, John.
And also you were on the task force, right?
Yeah.
So if you also want to speak
Oh, yeah.
to,
I think I'm actually the only person on the committee, who was there.
happy to have.
Yeah, sure.
Informs, so-
I just wanna make sure, maybe John, if you want, I don't know if everyone on the committee knows like the whole history of this and like the operating agreement and the resolution that we passed last year asking. The developer to like make every reasonable effort to abide by the operating agreement and. There's a lot of history here, I feel like that we need to make sure, I think, maybe Rod was not on, Campbell, were you on it last year when we did that?
I was, but I have to,
Well, you're allowed to, well, say what you're gonna say and then,
I have to be present not voting on homes.
but you're allowed to speak, but anyway, just were you,
Speak into the mic,
Oh, sure.
you have to turn on.
you have to turn it on.
Yeah, I have to be present not voting on homes because I work at EDC.
But you're allowed to join the discussion. So anyway, do you remember, were you here, Campbell, last year when we talked about this?
I was.
Okay, so Rob, maybe you're the only person that wasn't on, but. Yeah, just the history of this, that there is an existing operating agreement between BSA and the city that was the CB3. And the members of CB3 were heavily involved with. And that, you know, the principles of it and the guidelines are on our website still. Are that there should be, but first of all, at Essex Market and the Market line should work in tandem. As, you know, micro businesses, that there will be no one retail space over 30,000 feet. That, you know, preference should be given for local entrepreneurs.
Right.
You know, this was city-owned land, when Spura occurred. And, so, I mean, I think everyone at the table knows all this, but just to reiterate it, because I think it's important for the record for folks to.
For the public as well, we may not all know, so.
Yeah, and I was at the, you know, the task force meeting, and I'll just basically repeat what I said then, which is. This is depressing to me, that we're being asked now to jettison all of that hard work by people, to make Spura and Essex Crossing a place for economic development for our community, not for for a large corporation. And I said also that, you know, Richie's on Delancey Street has already closed. You know, we don't know exactly why, but like, not only are there pressures of online shopping now, but also obviously Target opened in that time, which sells, you know, pretty inexpensive clothing. And I would like if I stopped, I mentioned the reason I was late was because I just happened to stop. I had this draw to stop at one of the, you know, the outerwear shops on Orchard Street, Nick and Sons, which is, you probably walked by 1,000 times. And, you know, they first of all had no idea that this was happening. This meeting, this proposal, you know, nothing. And I just mentioned it to them and they were like, that'll put us out of business, like, you know, and, you know, my great grandfather came to this country and opened a schmata store on, you know, on what was once, Rutgers Place, and which no longer exists. And I, you know, I really think that we as a community need to stick to our guns on what we asked for originally. And like, I just feel like we cannot like say that this is okay, because we've said for years that it's not okay. So how can we just like pivot on that tonight? And I know that like Tim has put together a resolution with like a lot more, or I shouldn't say Tim, sorry, Susan sent it to me, I don't know why I said Tim. Susan sent me a resolution, a draft resolution with a lot of these facts in it. That maybe we wanna take a look at, but I just want everyone to think about like the pertinence of what we're doing here this evening and how we could be putting people out of business with this, what I think is a travesty.
Yeah, no, agreed, obviously, there's the retail environment in general is somewhat poor and it would certainly hurt a lot of good people. I think maybe we should have, even though objects to the committee, maybe just take a look at the resolution that has some of the questions that the obviously task force had, and then maybe get some, you know, questions and answers going with EDC and Rohan, just how it's going. We can just maybe put the resolution up.
Yeah, actually, it was the true.
This is a draft resolution, obviously. You happy to read it if someone else doesn't want to do it? I'm pretty loud, so. It's not super long, it's not massively long.
What page is it?
No, it's only like a page and a half. It's like resolution light compared to a lot of
Oh.
resolutions.
Not no more.
Oh, not the one that I'm looking at then.
No, yeah, you're maybe looking.
Oh,
for
this is the original.
This is a more recent one, it's not this one.
Okay.
That was.
The old one was for that one. Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot of background, which we're not,
Okay.
we don't need to include this one.
Oops,
I
sorry.
got some. Alright, so let me just read through this quickly. Whereas Community Board Three's Essex Crossing Task Force was recently informed that Delancey Street Associates seeks support from the New York Economic Development Corporation, NYC EDC, to amend their operating agreement for Site 2 to permit the former Market Line space conversion into a big box retail space for Burlington Coat Factory. Whereas such former Market Line space is reported in the New York City Department of Finance as block 352, blah, 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 we can move to that. Whereas such operating agreement sites, impertinent that one, Delancey Street Associates, specifically site owner 2 DSA, read that later, but commits to making good faith efforts to provide a dynamic mix of retail tenants, providing a balance between serving the needs of local residents and workers, and destination retail. Delancey Associates commits to, should the Market Line space fail, close or not consistent mix of retail, that Delancey Street Associates will buy at least 27 micro retail spaces at street level of Essex Crossing. Delancey Associates commits to operate the Market Line for a mean period of 15 years. Delancey Street Associates commits to ensuring that except for the supermarket, grocery store retailers, large than 18,000 square feet will be located above or below the ground floor, and that within Essex Crossing, there should be no more than 3 retailers larger than 18,000 square feet. That retailers will not exceed 30,000 square feet with the exception of supermarket, grocery store, fitness center, movie theater. Extend and further enhance community-based programming supporting low and moderate income residents, particularly seniors, students, and other undeserved groups. Extend and further enhance monetary and other supports to the Fresh Bites program, which provides essential services to diverse local residents, and extends access to SNAP benefits for affordable and healthy produce and grocery goods. Ensure that appropriate financial and programmatic support is provided to Essex market vendors who are now only micro vendors open within Essex Crossing. Ensure that Essex Kitchen and Public Mezzanine are primarily utilized for public use in programming. And commit to perpetual subsidies that Essex markets can provide The community benefit commitments made by the city have not otherwise been fulfilled by Essex Crossing and or the Essex Street Associates. Further, be it resolved, Community Board 3 requests that NYC EDC respond in writing and present Catherine's determinations about requesting this resolution, which have modified requests made in prior resolutions before taking actions, granting approvals or making a final commitments to alternative use of the form of market line space. Does anyone before we want to hear from EDC, obviously, but anyone on the committee want to make comments? Particularly about, I mean, I'm particularly concerned about losing the community aspect here. And the fact that some of our. It could obviously degrade the retail environment for a lot of our local retailers. So I think those concerns are very valid. The things we do have an effect on our community. Does anybody from the committee like to make a comment? And we'll hear from the public later, but like to hear from the committee first. Anyone would like to speak?
I would. I think what is lacks is the best part of the previous agreement, ensuring that businesses have a place, you know, within the new space, right? Like the butcher, for example. Not only were they guaranteed a space, but they also were insured lower rents, right? Or the rents were kept, not lowered, but kept at a moderate level, right? You know, instead of like having a Burlington or a large corporation use the space, I think it would be better if they would offer it to the neighbors or, you know, neighboring mom and pops maybe, because putting a Burlington there would definitely put a lot of businesses out of business. And Orchard Street, for one, is really known for its, you know, clothing and mom and pop stores for generations. You know, I'm just partial to it anyway because I'm a preservationist, and I'd like to keep the history of the Lower East Side intact as much as I could. That's my question, my statement, right?
Anyone else in the committee, Alistair?
I think the issue here is that everybody would like to have community-based organizations rent out the space. I think that's without question. That was the plan. But realistically, they're not able to attract any of those businesses. And I know commercial leasing is very difficult in the city, and sometimes you expect that you'll be able to attract certain types of tenants in the space, and you can't. I've experienced that personally, and I've seen it happen. You can lower the rents to whatever you want. If businesses don't exist and they want to go there, they simply won't. So I think the issue here, if I understand correctly, is they tried to go community-based. They were not able to attract anyone. And this is a fallback. We do have now a big box retailer that's running the space. Do we go ahead and do that? The benefits of having an occupied space is that you're obviously going to have employees hired there, and the businesses paying taxes and contribute and financially to the city, and hopefully the employee and hopefully the employees are local. But I think if I understand correctly, that's exactly the issue, is that they tried to go community-based and they're not able to attract those businesses.
Thank you, Alistair. Thank you for that.
Anyone else from the committee would like to say something? Point, Steve?
I think I just have more of a question. It's over 34,000 square feet, so I'm wondering if you explored, you know, providing worst case if you had to provide it, you know, put in front of the tenants that give less space, but you go back to leave space available for local small businesses. And also I just have a question about the outreach that was done. I don't know, we work with the East Village Independent Merchants Association. We've seen a number of small businesses that have lost space and have reached out to us asking if we know about other spaces available. So I don't know, I don't feel like I've really been in the loop on this. So you know, I've got my staff is more connected to the retailers. So I'm just wondering, you know, what efforts really were made to reach out to local organizations. There's also with Arts Block, which we're dealing with a lot of you know, theaters and dance companies that are always looking for rehearsal space. So, you know, I don't know if that's been seriously pursued. Also don't really know what the rent range is that's being looked at, so. Some of them have capacity to pay, now they can't pay market rate, but they can pay, you know, more than the economic rent.
Sure, so, I'm gonna answer part of the square footage operating agreement question, and then Rohan, I'm gonna turn it over to you, if you could share a little bit more detail on sort of how you conducted your outreach and whether you considered, or was there any interest in splitting up the space for multiple users. So, it is true that the Department of Finance has it registered at 34,000 square feet. EDC uses our operating agreement as the sort of square footage indicator. So the full space is 30,000 square feet. Again, Rohan, correct me if I'm wrong, but EDC does not believe that they are in violation of their operating agreement because it will, you know, with construction and all of the egress and different unusable space, it will be, we think it will be under 30,000 square feet, right? So just on a real estate transaction perspective, we don't feel that it is in violation of the operating agreement. And then I guess I'll turn it over to Rohan.
Yeah, I'll just on that, when the DOF does their square footage measurements, it includes back of house areas and meter rooms, things that we don't lease out. But Gigi, you're right, we need an additional egress stair out of this space. So that eats up some space, and then with the revamping of the lobby, the same thing, so it attenuates the space. In terms of outreach, you know, this is, again, we've been leasing in this, you know, in this neighborhood for the past 11 years. So we know all of the brokerage teams, both citywide and the local community, and we really didn't leave any stone unturned. We weren't focused on a certain type of tenant. You know, again, most folks weren't interested in the space after seeing it. You know, I'll give you an example. We had a vintage tenant downstairs and they were doing okay, and now we were able to relocate them to an at-grade space at what we call Site 8, which is the site just north of Irvington on Essex, and they're doing fantastic. So there's a huge advantage, especially to these mom and pops that don't have the draw of that street visibility. And I really think that was one of the main issues with trying to open a basement market is there wasn't the big name draw, and you know, it's highlighted to have 27 businesses in here. I did over 60 deals over the course of the time we were here, so this wasn't something where we were trying to check a box and get it done. We busted our butts to try to make it happen for the small businesses. I consider a lot of them friends. You know, we did everything we could to kind of make it work. I understand that it's disappointing that it didn't work. I don't think anyone can really be more disappointed than me. It was my concept in my life for a long time. But honestly, we tried everything, and you know, as much as I wish it would, it wasn't there, it wasn't doing the business. Not enough people in the community, honestly, were shopping down there. I'm not faulting them, but it's just the nature of the way people shop. You know, they have their favorites and things like that. In terms of there was a question about sort of what other types of uses. Yeah, we reached out, as I mentioned. There was museums that looked at it. I think you guys know a museum bought the space next door. We obviously did the deal with the museum across the street with International Center of Photography, which is also a school. The entirety of Site 6 is all community facility spaces underneath the 100 senior apartments. This space is zoned commercial. We would do a deal with the community facility space, but in terms of economics, they typically can't afford to pay rents, and I wouldn't say we were charging anything above what we needed to sort of handle debt service payments and taxes, which are pretty high in this space as well. in terms of outreach. So we had a lead broker, which is JLL. You guys have likely all seen signs from them, or they're one of the largest brokerage companies in the country. They have their A team on it, people I've known for decades. So no stone left unturned. In addition to them as lead, we go out to every single one of our other brokerage relationships, which is literally everybody. Everybody knows this project, everybody knows this neighborhood. So it's not that there wasn't awareness, it's just, again, the nature of what is a pretty challenged space. If it were at street level and nice and clean and open, I think situation would be a lot different, but it's a tough one.
So I guess one of the questions is, given that the space is so odd, is kind of saying with the columns, like, has there been any serious consideration into subdividing it and splitting it that way? It sounds like you're really just looking for one tenant. So have you considered other options, or?
We obviously look at everything, and I had actually looked at this for different reasons in the past, particularly during the pandemic when, a lot of the tenants weren't comfortable reopening. I'm talking about right after it sort of began. Some people wanted to stay open and we're trying to figure out how to divide the space. The issue with not being at street level is egress, access, ADA, and all those things. And once you sort of add all of those things in, especially on a site where every square inch of the street level space is spoken for, you can only imagine how difficult it is to get 200 apartments, 80,000 feet of theater, an active and well-tenanted Essex market all into one building and then throw space underneath it. There's no real way to divide this up and provide egress, ADA access and everything and make it sort of an attractive space. Again, we look at all these things. I think we're pretty good at it. We were able to solve a lot of the issues with, other spaces when things weren't working out. And this is sort of the solution that works for the space is single tenant. It doesn't really work. There's no real feasible way to subdivide a space in the basement like that.
Susan?
Thank you. I'm also on the task force and has been involved in this since before it got formally started. So I don't think we can compare this to regular commercial property because, as was mentioned, it was not only city land, it went through a community process with community guidelines. So it is not the same as Bowery or Broadway. I think we also, there's certainly, they have to acknowledge the benefits of having it, be rented, and, certainly better than being vacant. But also we have to consider the negative impacts of that. And I'm thinking right across the street, Richie's store, which would be, I would say, a direct competition with Burlington Coat Factory. So I think we do have to look at what it will do to our local businesses who have been here a long time and who are struggling. And I do think going through the resolution, I think there's some more than reasonable options to try and cover different areas, both have it rented and have it be a community benefit.
Michelle? Thank you.
Thanks, John. I actually just wanna, I don't know, I'm not a real estate person, but I just wanna push back on the concept that the vacant space is actually that detrimental to the community. It's not visible from the street. It's not like it's a vacant storefront that, people have to walk by at night with no lights. They put that nice little tarp over the staircase after a lot of work, so thanks. We have that little historical mural there now. I don't think it's our job to make sure that developers can pay their taxes. If it's going to be detrimental to our community, as Susan mentioned. And I just also want to ask, we have Tim and Rohan here, Tim is probably the person who would be responsible for trying to, give back some of the space to the community. So I'm just curious if there's been any discussion about whether or not, as Rohan said, it would be too expensive for community use, if you don't mind having Tim Hanson.
I certainly don't mind if Tim wants to throw those two.
What was the question?
Like, have you been in discussions with the developer about whether or not, it's too expensive for community use?
No, there have been no coordinated community conversations with the development team and the bid about the space. We have suggested a variety of alternatives. We've suggested those that are in your resolution to the development team privately. We suggested those in our quarterly conversations with agencies. And we were as surprised as many to find out that after your resolution and no response to it, the determination to proceed with Burlington Coal Factory that had been in the works for seemingly some time had been made. I think, right, that we're all making very good points in this conversation and that they're all reasonable points. I think Alistair really had a very good point about it being a challenging landscape. And I think Michelle had a very good point, Susan had a very good point about the impacts that a large corporate retailer can have on our community and those kind of tertiary impacts that happen when there's adjacent businesses that get impacted. Having said all that, we all know that Essex Crossing needs to pivot, right? Post-pandemic, there needs to be a pivot. Did that pivot happen quickly? No, but it has happened over time. Vital Gym, Canyon as a cultural institution purchasing Site 3, really kind of looking at what's going on with the broader project. Hopefully some leasing activity as it relates to office. I'm still fingers crossed hopeful and hopeful with the new administration that they consider potentially an agency, as was requested in the last resolution. Can a city agency come to all that square footage and really have that foot traffic and use our taxes to support a project? I think what would make a lot of sense, to be very honest, we're at the line, right? When you look at the intent of the agreement and you look at the letter of the agreement, we are right at the line of what it says about big box stores from 30,000 square feet. I think EDC is correct in their position that the agreement say it's up to 30,000, right? And that's what it would be. I think it's, in my opinion, a little bit disingenuous to come up to that line and say, well, there's a lobby and an elevator, it's really 34, but it's not. What I think would be great, and I think would behoove the community, would be if we can keep the staircase, keep a portion of the space of the market line that's already been demolished, but still has some vacant stalls that connects to Canyon underground, the market line proper, right? Connecting down to the cultural institution and connecting the market, and potentially looking at making an upward connection to the urban farm. It's already paid for and built. If you can make those things happen on that southern side of the market, you truly do get the community benefits that the project envisioned and committed to, but you do so in a different way by allowing the development team to lease the northern section, the majority of it, to frankly recoup their investment, right? And they did make an investment, they own that space, right? They own it outright, they're paying taxes, I get all those things, and they should be able to make that investment. But if that's the trade, right, in my view, and I think the view of the summary of many of you that I've spoken to in the task force was, what else, like, how can we find a middle ground here that really closes out this project, right? That allows the rest of the sites to be developed and allows the community to benefit that was promised in the RFP, that predicated the selection of this project, and then the hard work we've done since 2013 to now to really be realized. And I think that that's what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, so maybe, I think at this point, we'd like to hear from EDC, just respond to some of the suggestions from the task force. And some of the suggestions are in a potential resolution. I'm not saying we're gonna pass one, but, would you be willing to respond to some of the comments here and give us some sense of?
Yeah, so I just wanna clarify that EDC doesn't own the space, right? The developer owns the space.
Oh, understood.
And so I'm gonna let Rohan speak to, some of the challenges to sort of the request that is outlined that Tim just articulated.
Are you referring to the concept of a
Yes,
passageway?
yes,
I sort of hit on it before. Well, one, it doesn't leave you most of the space. Two, you have to have egress out of that tunnel. You can't have permanent You can't have anything permanent in the tunnel. I mean, I'd ask you, Tim, I'm not sure, what is the community benefit of connecting Canyon through a 100-foot tunnel and then up a stairway into the market instead of them just crossing the street into the market? I don't think I don't see how, I mean,
I guess then we're agreeing that the whole premise of the market line doesn't make any sense and a subterranean retail space that was connected. Would it be an appropriate use of space or investment?
well, I mean, you're saying a hallway, not retail space within there. And yeah, I think we proved that it didn't work in the basement. But yeah.
Yeah, listen, I would say that I think that rather than decking over stairs in the Essex Market. Right, rather than having an elevator core going from a Burlington coat factory into the Essex Market's main Broome Street.
That elevator is not gonna go from Burlington to Essex Market. That elevator is just for Essex Market, Urban Farm, and your mezzanine level.
Right, but the elevator does go down to that market line level today, so that the good connection would be there would be an ADA egress to be able to go down. And then when Canyon's operating, you can have essentially all that space. What we do with it, I don't know, but the whole point is to kind of maintain the promise and the connection. It is a suggestion that is an alternative to having a closure, an elevator closure, an elevator facade that goes to nowhere. And a Burlington coat factory beneath the Essex Market, right? It's not maybe not necessarily ideal, but it is the best that you can do while trying to meet in the middle. So our job is to try to bring solutions, right? Try to hear everybody's opinions as stakeholders in the community and try to present those to you. That's what we're doing here tonight. And so, that's all we can kind of speak to.
Understood. Any other comments from anyone in the committee or if not, I'm gonna go.
I just wanted to, looking at the draft resolution here, just wanted to zoom out for a second and just take this opportunity to say that, EDC is still very much committed to the success of Essex Street Market. We continue to have a funding agreement with the Lower East Side Partnership for community events, for senior fresh bites, for senior cooking lessons. The test kitchen the renovation for the test kitchen will finish in the end of October. The market is 100% rented. There's no empty stalls. All of them are paying below market rate. The legacy vendors, true to our operating agreement, their move over was completely covered. They got first choice of space, design their own space, and continue to enjoy legacy rents that are below market rate. All while saying the market is not making money. So these are all investments that EDC and the city continue to make to Essex and the micro vendors. I understand and hear the frustration, and I'm here today to take that back around Burlington. I will say to Michelle's point, we're not public with Burlington because we made a commitment that if there are new tenants, we would come to the task force first. The task force's request was to come to this committee, right? So I just want to kind of give that larger picture of EDC honoring a lot of the commitments being made, but understand that the role of this body is to push us to do better. But I wanted to provide that perspective since I'm here.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee? If not, I'd like to take some public comments.
I have a question.
Yes.
I have a question for Rohan. Thank you for all the work that you did. My curiosity is whether you were able to look into, for instance, large scale like event spaces that are used as like flex spaces where people have like these like pop-up festivals that I've seen where like I've been to a few that have taken place. Like actually it's near those big box retailers in like 17th and 6th Avenue.
Metropolitan Park.
Right, exactly, where it's like a big event space where like you can host a gala there, but I've also been there where it's turned into like this entire like weekend festival where like there's so many bodies coming through, because I think part of what Sandra was saying and what everyone else is saying here, the charm of the neighborhood is that it is very local, and what that sort of preservation is what attracts a lot of other people to come to the area, so. Putting a Burlington coat factory doesn't necessarily accomplish either of those things, so I'm wondering if you've done any research on like those types of spaces, because I think post-pandemic, those have become much more prevalent. And I don't know whether a Burlington coat factory is a recession indicator, but I think that there's going to be a lot of homemaker entrepreneurs that are also going to need a space to sell their goods as well.
Yeah, so since about 2021, I've been in conversation with many of the event people, whether they're the hosts or the people that actually, the hosts that locate, do location services for the events, or the event people themselves. Prior to Vital taking that space, we did several events in there, fashion shows, trade expositions. Same thing with Site 3, for those who don't know what Site 3 is. Site 3 is where Canyon is now. And we did some, what I thought were great events. We brought Taste of the Lower East Side back to the community. Sephora did this large public facing thing, Nike, there was a bunch of art events, art fairs, things like that. We ran that for a while. And one of the reasons we did that deal with Canyon is because their intent is to do sort of the same thing, which is complement what they have in their digital exhibition space with a lot of events that are going to bring people both into that space, but it's a great environment. A lot of times these museums, as you all know, are great environments to have events like that, whether it's music or art or community events or commercial/industrial events. Again, the issue, and I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but Site 2 was, again, of the spaces you guys have seen, the Vital space, it's magnificent. I think you've probably all seen the Site 3 space. It's the same, it's magnificent. Site 2, just by virtue of everything we had to put in this building, and Essex Market taking all of the upstairs space and all the light and air, it just doesn't have that. It doesn't have good sight lines for like a stage. There's areas where the ceiling heights are 10 feet. It's just challenged in a lot of ways, so it was never an attractive option. I tried very hard to get events in there because I thought it was going to help the vendors. I had this sort of idea of an ecosystem where people come in for events, the Market Line vendors would be the caterers or host the after parties, and a couple of those worked okay. Not enough, certainly, to support that many vendors. With 40-something vendors upstairs, as you said, fully leased, and then us doing another 30 or 40 downstairs. It's a lot of small businesses to support in one space. So kind of a long-winded way to say, yeah, we have been looking in that arena for a long time. We succeeded in getting some of those. Usually they're one-offs, like if you get one guy who wants to do an event, some of these event hosts, if they do 3 or 4 events a year, that's a lot. So you really have to kind of get a regular rhythm going for it to activate the space on a long-term basis. And I think Canyon's going to have success doing that because they're going to have the background of like a museum that's going to draw people from hopefully everywhere, both tourists and around the city. And then that's going to be complemented by periodic events, to bring other people into space and to bring people into what is a beautiful space.
I guess
Sorry?
so what's Canyon exactly, for those who don't know?
Canyon is it's a new concept for a museum focused on the digital art space. So it's kind of mixed media. I'm not going to claim to be sort of, the most literate in digital art, but it's sort of the hottest new art form, whether it's video, screen, mixed media, things like that. But there's no sort of institution dedicated to it in New York. The founder of Canyon is an art aficionado. He's a very wealthy guy who's a collector. And he saw this as an opportunity to create something that, he's a very, very, huge supporter of the digital art community. So he saw this as an opportunity to give them a home. And, saw a good fit with this location. Lower East Side's long been home to artists, and certainly artists sort of on the cutting edge, which digital art is. The connection then over to Brooklyn as well. So yeah, that's sort of the high level of what it's going to be. So it'll be another sort of museum type institution, but again, focused on the digital art forms.
That's very cool, and I think that's within the spirit of the Lower East Side and its artistic community. I'm wondering if there is, for instance, like an equivalent of that in like the music space, where there could be like recording studios and then a place where they could perform. I feel like these are really creative ideas, and I think that is probably something that is a little bit tougher to explore, but I'm wondering if it's been tried.
Yeah, I mean, I tried on the music side, talking to everyone from Baby's All Right, if you know them, across the bridge in South Williamsburg, up to the bigger Bowery Presents types folks. It is hard for them to sort of make a space work. They, understandably, nobody wants to go to a concert with columns. Nobody, they have a lot of requirements. Then you have to sort of think about the community in terms of, I think the reason a lot of these music venues end up being sort of further out in those neighborhoods is because then when the concert gets out, it's not disturbing to the neighborhood. So we wanted to be sensitive to that. So you're right, it's a little trickier. I thought we were going to get one of those deals done at one point, or some form of it, some sort of, musical outlet where the community could sort of have that as a local thing. A lot of those spaces in the Lower East Side, even since I moved to the city in 2000, we've lost a lot of them. So on a personal level, I wanted to see if I could bring them back, but it was challenging, both in terms of like what they need in terms of space, and just honestly, their take was we need bigger spaces, and I thought these spaces were huge, and they're just like, you don't make that much money from the smaller acts unless you're just like a bar. And I guess that's why we've seen a lot of those spaces close, unfortunately. But yeah, we tried that venue for a while as well.
All right, thank you. I think we do have a member of the public that has their hand raised. You actually have 2 minutes to speak, so if you can, what is it? Is it Tommy Lowe?
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
It's, hi, Tommy.
Thank you. The one thing I haven't heard is that we have a lot of artists, craftspeople, people who are looking for venues to sell their goods, don't have brick and mortar shops. We've had many successful flea markets, for example, in Manhattan. Some operate only in the summer or in good weather. And to me, it looks like, I get it that you sent this out to some real estate professionals who were looking for one-offs, basically, but it doesn't sound to me like you've done any of the hard work. And that hard work would mean getting out, surveying the community, making an offer to the community about what might be available, particularly to local artists, craftspeople, and local entrepreneurs. Small spaces that would rent cheaply would be a benefit to the community. I see no benefit to the community in this. And I'm sorry that you made a bad decision originally putting in the market line, but I don't think the community should suffer from that. There are plenty of ideas and people out there who need space. And what you're doing is looking for an easy one-off management of a large retailer, which makes it very easy for you, but doesn't make it at all for the community. And particularly since you have the Lower East Side bid working with you, they have roots in the community. They've done things. Let's attract some local artists and entrepreneurs and creative people and not go for one large retailer. Thank you.
Thank you, Tommy, appreciate that. I think we had somebody else raise their hand.
yeah.
Great. Fanny, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you've got 2 minutes to speak.
Yeah, hi. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. So I've been to City Point over in Flatbush, and it's the same thing. They have the same space in the basement, but with different vendors, food vendors, you know, the same sort of the same idea, but they are bustling in there. It's always full. And there is a Trader Joe's downstairs as well, but every time I'm downstairs, it's crowded. It is packed. So I don't, maybe it's possible for you to look into what they are doing different, you know, because I don't understand. It is the same basement space idea, but somehow they have a lot more vendors, a lot more people are going in there. So that's all I gotta say.
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Anyone else from the public interested in commenting? If so, raise your hand, please. All right, we have no one else raising their hand.
No.
Okay, so yeah, I think some people in the committee have commented, obviously the space is difficult, but I think sort of the main issue really, a lot of us is that I think, you know, a big box retailer is definitely against what we've always wanted here. And actually, you know, could easily have a net negative effect on our community in a lot of other ways. And so I think there are a lot of concerns. Also, there's a new mayoral, possibly, obviously a new mayoral administration is gonna come in, which might actually also bring to light something on this issue. So I don't know, I think it's a lot of suggestions we've seen the potential draft resolution are very reasonable. Anybody on the committee like to make any kind of suggestion or? Yes, Michelle.
Oh, I have a question actually for Gigi, which is like, what's the next step here? Like, is there sign, can they just go ahead and do this, or do you need to sign off on it because it violates operating, or I guess it does not violate, so like, what's the next step as is the question?
John, do you want to answer that?
I'm sorry, Gigi, were you calling to me?
Yes, yes. So Michelle's question is, what are the next steps? Sort of what is EDC's role and sort of what would be the path forward?
Right. So, hello, everyone. My name is John Raymond. I'm part of the real estate team. And the next steps would be to, one, we would modify the operating agreements and to permit the Burlington use and sign off on that. So that requires the city's and EDC's signature. So that would be the next step.
Okay,
Is there a timeline or something along those lines, maybe? What are we talking about?
Yeah, we're looking to execute the documents in the near future.
Can you be a little more descriptive in the near future? Because I mean, obviously, we are changing mayoral administrations, right? And that's a big issue. And so I don't want to see something slip in the back door that the next administration has to be opposed to. So
Yeah, no, they're definitely looking to do this within the next month or so.
That's,
Yeah, so to me, that, I mean,
no.
So I've got concerns. I think a lot of the community have concerns. Particularly, and I think, you know, obviously you can sort of get it, slip it in and say it doesn't break the agreement, but I think it breaks the agreement really in spirit a lot. Is a huge concern, and I personally can't support it. Anybody else want to make a suggestion to move forward? Yes.
I have a suggestion. I'm wondering if we could include it in the resolution. I think a member of the public had a good idea about City Point, and I'm wondering if there can be some research done on case studies of like how like different basins in New York City's at this square footage and how they're being used and how they're being operated, because I can't imagine that this is like the only problem child basement in New York City or in other like cities either. But I feel like we should have a better sense of like what the research looks like versus like us on good faith asking Rohan, like, what have you done? And obviously he's done a lot, but we've had to like extract that versus it being presented to us.
Susan?
First, I just wanted to mention that Fanny's not really a member of the public. She represents Assembly Member Grace Lee.
Okay,
So,
sorry.
I think I see this happening, and I think the idea of having this go through at the end of an administration where you don't know who's gonna be actually implementing anything. You know, that the committee might consider putting in a resolution, you know, at least waiting until possible new ideas or new policies with the new administration.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. I think, so I mean, I understand it's a difficult space, but it's kind of the space you created, in a sense. And I think it's, unfortunately, you know, I think the marketing in general for that space has been just poor for a long time. You know, there are other spaces that are very successful, again, in the basement, you know, around the city, so I'm just concerned that we're gonna wind up, you know, basically aggregating the agreement that we've made as a community, and there's gonna be a new mayor administration, so I'd like to actually consider discussing the resolution more. I like Susan's suggestion. Actually, if anybody want to discuss this further or would like to take action on the draft resolution,
We don't have it. I don't have it on screen.
it's on the screen and give you a copy.
Are there any other members of the public?
Huh?
Did we ask if there are any other members of the public that wanted to?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yes, yeah, there are no other members of the public wish to speak, correct?
Their hand. What?
Put your hand up, obviously, if you did want to speak.
I didn't want to.
All right,
That, it's trees.
so I'm urging, does anybody else want to make a suggestion or,
Well, the same.
I just have a question. How long has a lease been in discussion with EDC? Because like, I know other, you know, for example, this space, we've been, you know, our building, board of this discussion, or management discussion with, DCAS about a lease for about a year. So I just, to hear that the agreement we signed off in a month, this seems very, very fast. So it feels like it's probably been in discussion for a while, so just curious.
Rohan, would you be able to speak to, you know, how long you've been in discussions with Burlington, and then I don't know, like, John or Rohan, when EDC was made aware that this was something, that the developer was asking for EDC to consider?
We started outreach on the space early 2024. That continued for the balance of the year. You know, I mentioned sort of the narrowing down from 70 tenants. You know, we took about 20 on various levels of discussion and tours, and around the beginning of this year had further discussions with Burlington. I think we talked to you. You guys are referencing the operating agreement. So within the operating agreement, there's a protocol by which we sort of communicate various things to EDC, and under that protocol, we speak with EDC regularly. The formal discussion of Burlington as the potential replacement was sort of first discussed in early summer, I would say. That doesn't mean the deal was done then or anything like that, but again, we speak sort of in real time to talk about things. You know, they ask who, you know, how are things going, what's the plan, you know, things like that. So I think that, John, does that sound about right in terms of when I think, you know, we sort of first started talking in detail about specific tenancies? And then over the course of the summer, it's, you know, you try to run these things on a parallel path. So while I'm discussing with Burlington, you know, there's various things to discuss with the city on how it might work. There's various things on figuring out the space, you know, have to bring in architects and things like that to make sure it can work. You know, tenants do their own test fits and things like that. So it's like a long process. So I'm not sure specifically what sort of, you know, it's not like I call Burlington, they say yes, we sign a lease, I call John, he says yes, and then we just go, you know, it's sort of it's a difficult, iterative, complicated process. In terms of all those steps. So, you know, sort of outreach has been going on for about 18 months, a little longer. And more specifically with Burlington over the past, call it 6 months, and then with the city over the past 3 months, I would say. But again, not, you know, it's not, no definitives, along the way, you sort of keep communication lines open with everybody. That's generally the timeline up to this point.
Well, sorry, thank you, for that. I still kind of feel like as a committee, we have a responsibility to the community to voice some type of opinion, on this. Is there anything in the draft resolution that people are not interested in? I'd like to consider it as a possible step moving forward, and then maybe make the suggestions or changes to it, if people are in favor of that. I certainly like Susan's suggestion. I'm very concerned about barrel change. And how that would affect this as well. Anyone like to make any other suggestions, Herman?
The anticipation of a mayoral change was why we accomplished Sixth Crossing. Bloomberg at that point thought if we did not, this community did not come to an agreement, we would never have a Sixth Crossing. And so it was, I remember the meeting with this stuff, he said, you guys better get this done while I am in office. Yes, so.
Thank you for that context.
So
He did say
I'm
that.
not, you're afraid of mayoral change. The other thing is, there were three things that we really needed that we didn't have in the neighborhood besides the low income housing. We needed 100% low income housing. Come to the realization that we couldn't fund 100% low income housing, so we compromised. One of the basic little things that somebody wanted was, we needed a bowling alley. We needed a movie stuff, and we needed an event space because everybody had to go to Brooklyn to have wedding or to have corporate meetings or whatever. And the only one that we had was in Seward Park, which was closed. Where the senior housing is on Essex Street, yeah, there was an event space was here developed. It was a big space that would also have a Jewish kitchen as part of the whole process. That is now the senior housing. So, you know, we should look for something that we don't really have in the neighborhood that would enhance the neighborhood. Now, we have everything uptown, we have all the space. Uptown, you have to go to Brooklyn. And so if somebody could come up with an idea, I mean, I look at the space, I visit this space. And it's really an awkward street, but was mentioned for an event space, and that's the third thing we have not seen in here, where the community could go there, have meetings, evaluate corporate stuff or everything. And I'm not sure if that space would fit, but I think we lost out on having that space.
All right, thank you, Herman. I think that's a good perspective on history also of space in the sense that. I think we've been kind of missing out. It's good to have Herman around, who's been around.
We were there with you, Herman. You weren't the only one. You know what I mean?
He's been around a while.
A little bit longer.
Been around a while. He's got most of his feet. All right, again, I'd like to move forward on something. I feel like we need to have an opinion. Does anybody want? I wouldn't mind discussing the potential draft resolution further, making any changes. Want to pull that up? Does anyone want to make any suggestions about things they don't like, do or don't like? I mean, I think in the past we worked on a lot of things where we've kind of taken a sort of a straw poll to figure out whether we want to move forward on something or not move forward. Yeah,
Sorry, is this the same resolution of the email to us?
Yeah, I emailed it to you.
Okay,
yeah.
Yeah, we sent it? Yeah, but I can't break quorum by sending it to you.
No, but now I gotta review it now.
Oh, no, I didn't send it to them before, I sent it to them
Exactly.
right here.
I didn't have a chance to look at it.
Sorry, I thought you sent it,
Look at that stuff.
Is there another
That was last year's.
I don't think so. The other was last year's thing that we
Right.
passed. We had a meeting actually. Marvin had said it's, right, we had the meeting in the kitchen. Over there.
I don't know.
Right,
Right.
that's when we had that meeting there, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it was just a reminder of what we did last time.
Right, yeah, the other resolution was just reminding what we did, and I kind of feel like nothing has changed from our point of view as a community when we passed that resolution. And I feel like, you know, again, I'd like to know if anyone has specific comments on this resolution or any changes to it.
I'm good with it.
I'm good with it, Tim.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I don't mind actually Susan's suggestion to make an addition about the barrel
I
change.
added that.
You added that?
And I added Rod's suggestion
Excellent.
about an analysis and a case study to come back to be presented to us, so.
That's
Yeah.
something you wanna read that out loud?
Sure.
The two things you added to it, maybe?
Yeah, I'll read the whereas clauses, because I feel like that's the most, or sorry, the therefore, because I feel like that's the most real. Therefore be it resolved, CB3 requests that EDC pause any approval of amendments to the Site 2 operating agreement until there is a new mayoral administration in 2026. That would permit the former Market Line spaces conversion into a big box retail space for Burlington Coke Factory. And I think we should get rid of this at this time, that doesn't make sense, right?
Sure.
Therefore be it resolved, CB3 requests that EDC, acting on behalf of the city, its relevant departments, including but not limited to the Department of Housing Preservation and Development, considers the following and conducts a feasibility analysis of the below. Determine if the southern portion of the former Market Line space adjacent to the staircase connecting Essex Market to such space and providing connections to the new cultural institution that will operate in Site 3 can be absorbed by the city and or a community-based not-for-profit organization that can maintain such space as an extension of Essex Market. Analyze retail situations of other similar basement spaces to be presented to CB3. Determine if Burlington Coke Factory would find acceptable a modified retail footprint that is under the 30,000 square foot threshold established by the operating agreement. And determine if the underutilized urban farm on top of Essex Market can be better integrated with facility programming and be operated by the city and or a community-based not-for-profit organization that can maintain such space as an extension of Essex Market. Therefore, be it further resolved.
So that's what you're adding.
I added just that analyze the retail situations of other similar basement spaces to be presented to CP3.
The further be it resolved.
Therefore, be it further resolved. I changed it.
Oh.
Therefore, be it further resolved, CB3 requests, regardless of the outcomes of the above referenced feasibility analysis, that EDC commit to the following: ensuring community benefit commitments are fully realized, that the consensus codified by ULURP approvals and the revised UDAP project summary build, extend and further enhance community-based programming supporting low and moderate income residents, with seniors, students, and other unreserved groups. Extend and further enhance monetary and other supports for the Fresh Bites program, which provides essential services to diverse local residents and extends access to staff benefits for affordable and healthy produce and grocery goods. Ensure that appropriate financial and programmatic support is provided to Essex Market vendors who are now the only micro vendors open within Essex Crossing. Ensure that the Essex Kitchen and the public mezzanine are primarily utilized for public use and community programming. And commit to perpetual subsidies so that Essex Market can provide the community benefit commitments made by the EDC that have not otherwise been fulfilled by Essex Crossing and or Delancey Street Associates. Wrapping up. Therefore, be it further resolved, CB3 requests that EDC respond in writing and present the outcomes of its determinations. About requests made in this resolution, which have modified requests made in the prior resolution, maybe we should put in the prior resolution from, was it November 2024?
October 24.
Okay, thank you. From October 2024. Before making any actions, granting any approvals, or making any final commitments related to the alternate use of the former market space.
All right, thank you. Do I have any questions or comments on that by the committee?
I have to say that,
Oh, sorry.
Hold on.
I really wanna say this about, Burlington. Burlington is, you know, it's for moderate, low income people, I mean. And there are a great deal on Lower East Side, it's mixed income, and it's not a bad store, honestly, and I can see that there would be a lot of traffic there, honestly, that's all I want to say, I mean, I don't see Burlington as such a bad, choice, so that.
Steve, you got a comment?
I just would like to add that.
Sure.
Yeah, as part of the feasibility study, I'd like them to also include, more outreach to local organizations. So that they can get some more feedback from the community about, possible entities that can be in that space.
Yeah, I would like to similar. Can you start typing the language on?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, okay, conduct. I think you mean Steve in the first. Steve, you mean in the first, therefore be it resolved?
Yeah.
Okay, so conduct, outreach to local stakeholders. About like the need, about,
That have, stakeholders that deal with the cultural community and with retailers.
local, yeah, okay. But stakeholders. That, interface with. Do you want 100% as well? I guess actually that's been the last one, which we asked EDC to come back. Respond in writing, present the outcome, so I probably actually don't need that in this. Here, but thank you. And actually, Steve, when I stopped by at the outerwear company, they were like, oh, there's some lady like who works in that building that reaches out to us, it must be your colleague Abigail that they were talking about, yeah.
All right.
All right, any more suggestions or comments from the committee, any modifications? Here that they'd like to hear? Would anyone like to make a suggestion here?
Yes,
Motion.
motion to vote on.
Second.
2 seconds. All right, let's have a roll call vote.
You got it? Yeah, okay, Damaris, absent, John,
Yes.
Ariadna, absent, Alistair,
Yes.
Herman,
Yes.
Michelle, yes, Molly, absent, Campbell,
Present non-voting.
Rod,
Yes.
Jaylene, yes, Sandra,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Megan. The motion carries.
All right.
All right, great. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, we're gonna move on to, thank you for your time, everyone who presented up here today. Obviously, it's a very important piece to our community and a lot of long-term community planning.
Bye.
Happy to have this conversation.
It's good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Night. Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna now move on to our next and last agenda item, and I will let Susan take it away and lead things.
Okay, thank you. And Michelle put up the priority. Okay, So we're voting on our district needs statement and budget priorities, which are capital and expense. Last month, the final district needs statement was sent to the committee and they just decided there was no changes. In September, the 12 community boards meet as a group. It's the district manager, the committee chair, Damaris, went to most of the meetings. And we met with the agencies to find out, how they're spending their money, where their shortfalls, where the needs are. The agencies tend to be told to say everything's wonderful, well, no, it's not. But we do make up agenda, and every June and July, I come to the committees and I say, what programs are you concerned about, what do you want on the agenda? So the 12 boards together make up agenda for each agency. They're all on our website under the resources. One thing that's very different this year, we worked very hard to make this happen. We used to make every community board would make one list of capital priorities and one list of expense. That means there was competition, you know. What do we need more? Is it programming for the homeless youth or seniors? We don't do that anymore. So now we make a ranked list for each agency. So HPD will get their list, DOB will get their list. What I did is I took what you see here is I took last year's priorities. I just pulled out the ones from this committee and I grouped them by agency. This is how they were ranked last year. So, and all the capital, we also got a tracker from NYCHA. So we're able to track every, and that's also linked to that, is also on our website on the resources. So we're able to track the funding for each one of our capital priorities. So all of our capital priorities from last year are still unfunded. So they're all here. And if you want me to go through what's here, the first one is low income housing. This is the one that a couple of years ago was said we wanted the city to invest in low income housing. They came back and answered us and said that's not a budget request. And we spent a great deal of time with HPD, and what we came up with their help was the program that we wanted funded for very low income housing. And we grabbed this on last year. HPD actually said they support our request, and so we could keep it on for our number one request this year. The next, we can go up a little bit, the next few are all NYCHA capital requests. They're mostly elevators. So that's it, and then we go into the expense priorities. The first one, which is also a NYCHA one, again, is about affordable housing. It takes, when someone moves out of a NYCHA apartment, it takes over a year to turn that around, to make it for a new family.
It's getting slower.
No, it's maybe like a month faster. It is basically flat. One of the mayoral candidates, if you guys have been listening, keeps talking about the thousands of vacant NYCHA apartments. This is one of these. They're not all because of this. So this was number one last year. Seems like a no-brainer or something that should be easy, you could say.
Low hanging fruit.
Yeah. Next one is again NYCHA funding for ground staff and building maintenance. We all know about the backlog in NYCHA. Next one again is funding for waste management staff and operations. Community board 3 is the fourth worst of the 59 boards in the city as far as rat infestation. And NYCHA suffers from this a lot. Next one's an HPD green housing preservation program. Next one again from last year was a DOB program. And I think that's it. And I would like to suggest from the consultations, to add to HPD, funding for inspectors. Give me a second, I'll read the comment. So funding for inspectors would help preserve existing, housing and would enable better response to complaints. And the issue is it's really hard to recruit because of salaries. So increased funding for HPD inspectors, to help, again, to help preserve existing affordable housing and respond to complaints. So this is just to add on, to that.
That sounds reasonable to me. To add on, anybody have any other questions or comments on these? Again, sadly, they're all underfunded. I'm actually very happy about the process you guys have come by where.
To not compete. It took, so there, I've mentioned a couple of times, there's now, it's a couple of years old, a network of the 59 district managers. And city planning has actually been really good about working with us.
That's great.
And it took a couple of years, but that's the result of it.
Perfect. Alice?
Susan, which committee deals with homelessness and mental health?
Human services,
That would be huge.
and they have all theirs fine.
Anyone else have any questions or comments about the priorities and the process?
So, Michelle, I think we need it. Do you want to add on, the HPD inspectors?
I added it,
Oh, you already did
but I don't
that.
know if that's exactly how you want it.
No, it should be, it has to be grouped by agency, so it should go under that increased funding, that HPD one.
It was there.
That's
Yeah, okay, so yes, that's where it should go, because we're now gonna be grouping them just by agency, so. The green housing would be 1, and then the increased funding would be 2, unless you wanna change the order. And you can vote to keep, whatever you want, to keep the last year's ranking, which you figured out for everything else.
Sure. Does anybody have any suggestions on the ranking? I'm happy with the ranking.
Me too. It's been like that for a couple of,
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
The ranking's been,
yeah.
I've worked on it for years.
yeah, it's not. I think
Why did
we
you say that?
have it now, we just love to see it get funded.
Well, there are some things that have come off the list.
That's right.
True.
There are
That
things
was
that have
last year.
some more so than other committees, some, less than other committees.
But this committee has, but this committee has been successful, in the last year, so. Because of Susan's, relationship, communicating with the agencies and getting the proper wordings for us to get it done.
That was definitely true with HPD, but I will say there's a lot of work in documenting and checking and everything, because.
Sure.
To me, one of the most embarrassing things is to have a priority and have them come back and say they're funded.
Great.
Yep.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, would somebody like to make a resolution?
I'll make a motion.
Make a motion, exactly, so.
Okay, motion to adopt this.
The district needs.
The district needs as budget priority.
Okay. You
Thank
got
you.
seconds? All right,
Okay.
great, let's take a roll call. And we can also make that a vote to adjourn, is that correct? Two things at once.
Don Fowl,
Yes.
Aaron Shua. Sarah Thomas. Herman Hewitt. Herman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Michelle Peterson, yes. Molly, absent, Campbell Nunn,
Yes.
Rod, here, yes. Jayleen Rodriguez. Yes. Sorry, these are all our government names. Sandra Strumbo.
Yes.
Steve Harrow.
Yeah.
Maggie Joy is absent.
All right.
All right, that will conclude our meeting until next month, thank you everyone.